Hi guys, it's Minx here, and I am joined by Luetin for Minx and Luetin Discuss.
Hi guys.
If you don't know, this is the second episode of a podcast. The first episode can be found over on Luetin's channel. There's a link in the description. Go check it out because it was a fantastic first episode where we discussed important game-related stuff.
Very seriously, you know.
Exactly. We talked about Gamergate last week, and this week we're going to talk about a variety of topics, including games being YouTube fodder, game glitches, games like Goat Simulator that almost revel in the fact that they are full of glitches, and whether they have a place in the industry. Luetin is the person who puts all this together, so he's going to start talking, and then I'll chip in.
Okay, so, right. Okay, Goat Simulator, basically, we all know it as this kind of just crazy disaster fest of, I guess you would say, glitches, but it's almost predetermined. But Goat Simulator basically has made, up to this time, $7.5 million, and it has now shipped 1 million units, which is crazy. It can't be dismissed anymore as just this random game for, like, you know, idiots. It's not. It's a well-established thing now. Yeah,
it's so better than some AAA games do.
Yeah, you know, and also, like we were discussing before, you know, the developer of this made the Sanctum games, and we were just saying that, you know, what was his name? Sorry again, Minx.
I don't actually know his name, but I do know him. We talk on Twitter sometimes, but I can't remember.
Okay. He's going to love you now, right?
One second. I will actually have a look.
You look while I carry on. But basically, the point is that, you know, he's created these very serious games in the past. So to then go forward and make something like Goat Simulator, you can't just dismiss that as being a one-off random thing. He's made a conscious decision to create this game in the way that it is. And the fact that it's such a random glitch fest starts to make you wonder, you know, what's really going on there. And whilst it may seem like a just totally insane fest of things tripping down, falling over, jumping in the air, goats getting their heads caught together, and just utter insanity, I think it actually goes a little bit further than that. I think it starts to speak to what gamers are and what they kind of look to get out of their games, you know. And I don't think it's going too deep to say that at all, because, you know, when you start to look into the previous past of kind of where glitches originally occurred, and then sort of where we are going to right now. And also, I think it fits into kind of like this niche market where we have seen it start to develop, which has arisen out of social media. So it's kind of expected that it came through. And it's actually, I think, a pretty clever choice that he went forward and made this game. Have you found it, Minx?
I have not. Oh, yes, it's Armin Ibrisagic.
Ah, okay, it is that
guy. I can't actually say his name properly. I'm sorry, Armin, but you're a cool dude.
Ibrisagic.
You see, one thing I will say is I'm a much bigger fan of the Sanctum games than I am Goat Simulator. Like, Goat Simulator, I played because it was something that everyone expected me to play. But in terms of a personal level of enjoyment, I didn't get a huge amount out of it other than a quick laugh. Then I was done.
Yeah.
And I got a lot more enjoyment out of Sanctum 2, for example, which I played through the whole campaign.
Yeah. I think it's to do with its kind of predetermination. It's the fact that it kind of establishes before you begin, like, this is what's going to happen. And so there's no kind of like mystique, there's no joy of finding something. That's the hilarity of glitches. You know, in fact, even when we were playing like something that you wouldn't expect, well, you would expect to see it in Battlefield, but we were playing Battlefield the other day, and one of my teammates, my squad mate, he was right with me, and all of a sudden, bam, he jumped like 60 meters in the air. And we were like, dude, what the fuck was that? And it's like things like that. It's the randomness of when it happens. And when you have a game which sort of almost sets it up to happen, it's like knowing the punchline of a joke before it's been told, you know, and where's the fun in that? I guess
that you don't get the same sense of joy that you get when you're, especially like in most mainstream games, since forever, really, even back on the NES and things like that, where there were perhaps more prevalent glitches.
Yeah.
Glitches was still something that developers wanted locked down, wanted kept separate from the gamer, something you didn't want it to see. But when you did come across them,
yeah,
it was like super exciting and super rare, and oh my god, I found something interesting, oh my god. And if you're playing a game that sets it up like Goat Simulator, or to a lesser extent like the AAA face of this sort of thing is Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
If you're playing a game that sets it up, it can still be funny, but perhaps the pure joy of finding something totally utterly out of place.
Yeah. You expect it, don't you, really? That's the thing. Yeah. You've got that expectation Whereas if you're playing another game where you don't expect that and you find something randomly, it does have like a whole other element to it. But also, I think when you look back into sort of, older school gaming, like 10, 20 years ago, there was a whole different sort of way of approaching these things. It was more about glitches were not necessarily seen as like a stupid broken thing or something that would be hilarious, but it was almost more about kind of like finding the boundaries of what you were playing, because up to a certain point, they would often try to enclose you. And you do this in games now. And think about it, I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling in games of being kind of confined, and you sort of invisible walls is it's not a glitch, but it's kind of
that's how most games are these days. Invisible walls, like a lot of games will rail you through the environment.
It sort of destroys the feeling. It destroys the feeling for me. You sort of you're immersed in a game, and then you sort of walk forward and you think, oh, what? Because games bring you into a world. I guess I think glitches really are almost about sort of finding the boundaries of the world that you're in, because when you're in a game universe, you're sort of immersed in it, and you know about being immersed in games with horror stuff, right? It's like you get sucked into that feeling, and then all of a sudden, if you find something that's like not been properly done, or it's a weird glitch, it kind of shatters that feeling for you. And that's what I have found before. You're walking along, you turn, you think, wow, what is over here? And you start to go in this direction, and then bam, it's an invisible wall, and it's suddenly you're brought down to reality with a stone of like, oh, okay, I'm back in the game.
It's what makes it extra special in those games that are very restricted. Say, for example, The Last of Us. Now, that is a really good game. I really enjoy playing through it, but it is a game that railroads you through a set route, very much so, in my opinion. I was actually playing that as a story about a glitch. There's a section where you have to push a car. I'm not going to spoil everything massively, but you're pushing a car while under attack from enemies. And there was a glitch where the car completely vanished for me, and I had the two guys who were pushing the car were literally flying alongside it with their legs in the air, with their arms going up in a T shape. And Ellie, who was driving the car, was just like, her body was just spazzing out. Like her head was locked in place and her body was going blah, 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 and it stayed like that for about 10 seconds. And then it all suddenly like caught up and went back to normal.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the most, I was laughing. And I was fun, laughing. Yeah, exactly. It made me laugh. Perhaps probably more than the entirety of Goat Simulator did.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point.
It was so out of place,
That's the point, right? I mean, I've seen it, well, like, I play obviously on my channel, we do a lot of FPS. And again, most of the time, FPSs tend to be fairly well crafted games because they push for realism. So they tend to be well done. So again, if you see something really unusual in those kind of games, it's even more hilarious. Like, it's just so random. And there was a great one for me where we were fighting over a base, and I threw a grenade and this guy blew up. He went right up in the air, like ragdolled up, but then as he's coming back down, his head like caught on the edge of a container, and then his whole body's like flapping around like one of those flappy guys you see outside of a car, dealership or whatever, and his head's stuck on the thing. He's like and it's just like we're pissing ourselves,
it shatters the sort of like seriousness of the situation you'd normally be in, as it were.
It does, and I guess that's the thing about kind of glitches, and that's the thing, is that it sort of it reminds you of where you are, and it brings you back in, and it adds a whole different element to the game. And that, I guess, was what the beauty in older games was it's something unexpected, and that's the key, is it's unexpected. Whereas with something like Goat Simulator, or even something like Slender is in a kind of different aspect. It's not so much about glitches, but it is about predetermination. It's setting you up. And I've played Slender, and you've played it a lot. But
I played it quite a lot. Yeah.
You go into it, but do you know what I mean? It's almost like horror films nowadays.
The first time you play Slender, you're going to die, and you're going to probably if you're making a YouTube video, scream at the screen.
Yeah. It's setting you up. So where's the fun? Where's the kind of, because it's not so spontaneous. And my kind of analogy of horror films, it's kind of like older horror films. They sometimes were a bit more unexpected, but now you can watch them and you just literally like, turn the corner. Oh no, he's there. You kind of, it all already. And it's sort of, there's no fun there anymore. And I think that's where those kind of games are going. But with Goat Simulator, it is kind of tapping into a different thing there. And as I say, I feel like it's kind of, the way games have tried to become more and more refined all the time now, especially the kind of AAA stuff, maybe less so on the kind of more fringes of everything. But maybe this is kind of like, it's giving people a place to go to. And I say maybe that's where these kind of games have come out of, the fact that it's been more difficult for people to find that kind of stuff anymore. So it's kind of going, hey, you love that kind of craziness? Come straight to us. I mean, personally, I don't subscribe to it, but I think I can see where they're coming from,
I can definitely see where they're coming from, and I feel they're probably there clearly is a place in the marketplace for it, and it's clearly a game that was enjoyed by a ton of people. I personally didn't think it was that amazing, but you know, it was all right to mess around in for a little bit. But other than that, it's not for me. But I do understand why people like it. It's glitches on tap. It's tapping into the innate desire to see weird shit that a lot of us have within us. It seems, you know, and it's just I feel it's a game. Moving on to our further topic a little bit here. I feel it is a game that was made for YouTube. Like, it is a game where people will love to watch silly montages or people laughing and their favorite gamers laughing and really enjoying the moment. It's a game that's purely designed for that type of thing to a certain degree. And I feel that's probably what's contributed to its huge success, because someone's watched a silly video, someone's watched a goat simulator, the many goat simulator videos out there. Someone watched one and was like, wow, that was really fun. And they bought it themselves, you know, probably without knowing how much was really in the game, because there's not a lot in Goat Simulator, let's be honest. And you know, people will buy it because they think, wow, it's amazing. And it's almost like YouTube friendly games have become their own genre of game.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, Minx, do you know what's interesting? This actually ties in with our video from last week, you know? Because when you think about it, this game is about being in touch with your audience, being in touch with your player base. You know, it's understanding that. Well, last week we were talking about journalism and how they don't seem to understand that anymore, and how YouTube is more prevalent. What you just described absolutely describes exactly why that differentiation is there. Now, we're not going to get back into that topic, but it does highlight the point of, you know, this is a perfect example of that. But not only that, I can imagine a lot of other devs were kind of pissed at the success of Goat Simulator because of, you know, that, but you can imagine them grinding their teeth being like, God damn it, they made this stupid ass game and look how well it's done, and here we are trying to bust our ass. You know, it must be quite frustrating for those guys.
Now and then a game will come along that perhaps normally wouldn't do that well, that clicks so much with the video game viewing fan base on YouTube and YouTubers themselves in terms of being able to make content from it, that it will just catapult it into success. The earliest example of that was literally Amnesia. Amnesia, The Dark Descent, Frictional's first game, Penumbra, didn't really sell a huge amount, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't certainly it was popular, but it didn't put them on the map, if you know what I mean. And then Amnesia comes along, it gets picked up by YouTubers. I think I was one of the first people ever to play Amnesia back in the day. I had ridiculous views on my old playthrough of it. And it was just like, the game was catapulted into the limelight because of YouTube. I'm not saying it was a badly made game, because it's not, because it's a superb game. It's an amazing game. But it was just one of those ones that had the perfect gelling of personalities on YouTube enjoying it mixed with the type of gameplay people like to watch, and it just connects, and then it's bam. And it ended up getting a proper publisher. You know, it went on to sell millions of copies. You know, it was hugely successful, Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And it's a shame about Machine for Pigs, but you know, they didn't technically make that, so we'll let them off. We'll let them off in terms for their next game. Whatever it's called, Soma. Yeah, Soma's their next game. So we'll let them off until that one's out. Do you
think you would largely say that Minecraft as well?
Minecraft, totally.
You know, it's another one right there. You know, it's like
Minecraft was like the second game for it to happen. I mean, I myself haven't played a huge amount of Minecraft. I've done an occasional video on it, but Minecraft is thrived because of YouTube. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't have been popular without YouTube, because I'm sure it would have been, because it's something that captures people's imaginations. But YouTube has certainly helped it along, and perhaps helped it achieve greater success than it perhaps would have done without it. And you do get games that come. Slender is another example of a YouTube fodder game. Slender was everywhere like a while ago. Like, it was just everywhere, and there was like major releases, and the thing about Slender is it isn't really that good. In fact, it's pretty fucking terrible. Even the fucking full release, Slender, whatever it's called, The Arrival, that was fucking shit. And yet it still probably made a shit ton of money because it had a huge backing from the community, and people like buy into this sort of thing. It's almost like, because of the hype on YouTube, and because of the hype perhaps like with things like creepypastas and stuff as well, contributed to that game. You know, it all pushed it forward, and even though it wasn't that great, it captured people's imagination. It created its whole own genre of horror, Slender did, as far as I'm concerned, where you pick up shit while some twat is chasing you. And
I think DayZ as well. You know, DayZ was another one that kind of really got captured and brought in, and DayZ is another good example of a game which started out as a glitched, just ballsed up piece of crap, and now they're actually trying to make something kind of serious out of it. But in doing so, I kind of wonder whether they're sort of distorting the original premise too much, and that's kind of an interesting thing of kind of you see this happen sometimes where, like you were talking about before, you'll see something which comes like an unexpected success, and often people miss the key of why it was successful, and then they take that and they're like, wow, our game did really good, hey, now let's do this, and then they get all pretentious and they try to make it too detailed, and then it just fails, and they're like, oh my god, why did it fail? And I guess that's what we were talking about really with glitches, is it's sort of like this kind of unknown quantity. It's something that's there, and often it's not something that's particularly identifiable, and I think that's why Goat Simulator is actually smarter than it appears to be, because I think trying to nail that sort of undefinable thing that makes people go crazy for a game, I think is actually pretty difficult to do. And so I actually kind of, as much as I personally dislike the game, I kind of applaud it, because I think like, wow, it's actually pretty hard to try and nail something, especially in that kind of genre that's going to be so popular for people, you know.
It's almost like it was self-aware with YouTube in mind, which I don't feel many of these other games were, especially DayZ. I don't think DayZ.
No.
But I tell you what, I hate playing DayZ. I think it's horrible. Like, I hate playing it, but I love watching other people play it. I love watching Frankie and Jack and Rhino Crunch and people like that play DayZ. I think it's just watching their adventures unfold is like one of the most fucking amazing things on YouTube. I love watching DayZ videos, but will I play it? No, it's fucking terrible to play.
You don't see the 5 hours that took them to get to that
10
minute point, you know.
Like trying to kill yourself from boredom after sitting around on a hill for 2 hours waiting for one guy to show up, and then you realise you don't have any beans and you're dead. And you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, but let me just say one more thing about the kind of the borders and things of games and these glitches and stuff. And there's two that come to mind. And one is a Minecraft thing. There's this guy called Kurt J. Mack, and we'll link his channel below, I think. Basically, he does this series called Farlands or Bust. And we're getting a bit more serious again, bring it back here. But this is very interesting from the kind of point of view of how glitches kind of come to be and where people are going with them. Now, he's actually been doing this for the past few years, and he's on episode 404 of this series, so he's been really railing it for quite a long time. What he's trying to do in Minecraft is he's trying to walk 12,500 kilometers out from the center of the map, and the reason is that apparently when you get to that distance, it's something called the Farlands. And at that distance, the game physics and the game boundaries start to break down. It's almost like the edge of the universe. And the terrain starts to go weird and things glitch and they don't work properly. And, you know, he's never seen this. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, but theoretically, that's what happens at this distance. I guess it would be a massive anticlimax if he got there and nothing happened. Or if it was just like a black wall or something like that. But, you know, theoretically, when you get to that edge period, that's what's going to happen. But it's so amazing that you can kind of see this as it's like a kind of journey. It's taking this kind of weird element and turning it into something else. And I'd say that's kind of what used to happen with glitches, but now it's been taken away from that as not something that's so kind of crazy or funny or spontaneous and put into a box. And I guess that's why I stand against these kind of things, because it's kind of like, I don't like things being put into a box. You feel constrained and conflicted and sort of claustrophobic, and then there's no kind of like, you want to break out, you want to sort of have enjoyment. I guess that's why personally I love sandbox games so much. But I think you're seeing less of that. You're seeing less constriction now the more you look in games, because games are getting bigger and bigger and wider and more open, the more powerful everything becomes. And so I think that's a really, really positive thing. But
yeah, I mean, just for example, I'm playing Destiny a lot, and while it's still structured, heavily so, the main single player has plenty of huge, big, open, sweeping areas that do let you sort of like, you know, take a different route through them or bypass enemies and things, gives you that aspect of choice that obviously isn't the same as giving the game glitches and things like that, but it is giving a bit more control back to the player.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, the thing is as well is that glitches it goes both ways. We've talked a little bit about them being great, of course, but they also suck. There is a kind of reason why devs kind of take them out. We've not mentioned this at all. You know, from somebody who plays a lot of FPS, I mean, there's the classics, you know, getting under the map, sitting in a wall, you know, all this kind of stuff. There was in, what was it, Call of Duty World at War, and there was this weird ass thing where you could get into a corner and you did like this little dance, and then you'd spin up like 200 meters into the air and you could just, you know, hover up there. So there's a lot of these things which are absolutely shockingly bad for games. And,
I mean, I play a lot of alphas and betas where the glitches, I guess, are still prevalent that game devs send me and things.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time there's so many problems, and sometimes those problems carry on to the main game, like in DayZ, for example, when they released standalone, because that was bollocks. And you know, like, it was amazing actually, because the standalone DayZ was far, far, far less polished than the mod of DayZ. And it was just like I remember I played it with Owen when it first came out, and you can see the videos. I might even link, because that has a good example of glitches not being fun, with zombies running through the floor and killing us. It has well, maybe not killing us, but injuring us. It has like walls appearing to not exist to the NPCs, but to us. Yeah. And just general buggy chaos. In fact, there's a bit where I hit a guy with an axe and he slides across the landscape, bleeding everywhere, and I can't hit him to finish him off. I have no idea what's happening. I'm just confused out of my fucking mind. And while it's a little bit funny, at the same time, in a game where you're maybe fighting each other to get loot and stuff, it's pretty frustrating because a cool mechanic is gone. Yeah. And it isn't working. You know, and I'm not saying, I've heard that DayZ standalone's had quite a lot of improvements lately, but still, it's, you know, you see those things. Those things are a problem, you know.
Yeah. I think really the question and where this was kind of coming from this week for this episode was that, you know, what we're really thinking about is Goat Simulator has been extremely popular. It's done very, very well. And I've seen many people sort of asking like, hey, is this a whole new genre? Somebody said to me on Twitter the other day, and he was like, oh yeah, it's glitch culture. And they sort of bring up this new terminology of it's glitch culture. Yeah, I have to say, I don't see it. I don't see it happening because I think it's way too limited. I think it's way too constrained. And also, I think it misses the point quite spectacularly, you know? It's not about sort of going into a game and being like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. Because you already know it. You know, you already know it's
this
like...
is crazy!
Yeah, you know, it's just, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The joy of it is stuff like last night. I was gaming last night with my friends and we were playing, and Battlefield this week has released this new DLC, right? And they've got hover tanks. And before we even went into it, I was like, oh, good God. You know, if anybody plays Battlefield, like the tanks, the physics of them already are quite questionable. You know, you'll be driving along and all of a sudden it will sort of spin off and slide, and it's not great. But the hover tanks was just like, I was just thinking, this is that, but 20 times over, you know? And I was 100% correct. We were last night, we had 2 of them and we were driving around, but this is the joy. It's finding those things. It's, you don't expect it. And, you know, my squad mate Super, we were going towards some rocks and he managed to like ride these rocks up and do like a sort of 1080 through the air with this tank. And it was just, we were all just like wetting ourselves. It was so funny. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like, especially when you're in a game that's meant to be quite serious and tactical, and then you take it to something like that and everyone's just falling around. It's like, I don't care if we all die. It's too good a moment, you know? And that's it. You don't get that with Goat Simulator, you know?
And it's not just that. I find that the Goat Simulator really is probably going to be the pinnacle of the genre, guys. I mean, you see some of the shit that's on Steam Greenlight masquerading as the next simulator game. You're not going to want to play it. You're going to want to slit your wrists after just watching the trailer for some of these games. There is some absolute total fucking bull on Steam Greenlight as it is, and a lot of these are just people trying to cash in on Goat Simulator's success. And the fact is, they won't be anywhere near as good as Goat Simulator. Goat Simulator isn't good, but this is going to be so bad, so unfathomably bad. It'll just be some guy shitting over Unity, uploading it to Steam, and then being like, hey guys, this is a simulator, as you watch your fucking cat career across a screen into a river and drown. And that'll be it, and that'll be the game. There won't be any achievements. There won't be unlockables. There won't even be physics because they won't have bothered to put them in. And it'll just be an absolute pile of wank. All these games will. And Goat Simulator is guilty of having these games made with the success, but at least it's not guilty of being a really, really shit game. It is a game, and there is likable elements to it. But most of the follow-ups to it will not be likable at all. In fact, they will be cancer in video game form.
There you go. Jesus Christ. I don't think I need to say any more at all. But I think I'm going to end up with a slightly more serious finishing point than Minx right here with the ranting. Now, I guess what I want to say is I don't imagine people are going to have any sort of like huge, deep perceptions with Goat Simulator. But the thing is that mentality of exploring glitches and finding the confines, the borders of games, that's what's allowed games like this to sort of come into existence, which may or may not be a very good thing at all. But where some people see like a journey with glitches, for others, it's like this Goat Simulator, it's comedy, it's all just part and parcel of what gaming is. And with that in mind, I guess perhaps it shouldn't be that these games are just totally ridiculed for how absurd they are. But maybe they should be applauded a little for identifying something that others, would just dismiss as a broken element of a game. They've taken that and they've made something of it for people to enjoy and have fun with. So, whether you like it or not, it's a playground for the crazy. But, me personally, I couldn't enjoy scheduled fun. It's just not on my wish list at all. So there we go, guys. That's been Minx and Luetin discuss glitches and broken elements of games this week. I hope you very much enjoyed. The next episode will be coming up. I think it'll be next week or the week after on my YouTube channel. It'll also be going up on SoundCloud this week. So if you want to listen to it again or share it with other people, you can check it out on SoundCloud as well. We'll put the notes there below, and I'm going to be storing all of our podcasts there as well.
Fantastic.
So I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thanks very much, and we'll see you for the next one.
Bye, guys.